What's up, everyone? Welcome back for a brand new episode of Countdown to Scream 2023. Joel, I miss your face. I miss talking Scream with you. It's about time we do another one of these.
I agree. And Perri, you just noted there is a beep outside my window as a truck moves. I apologize, but I, like Scream 6, live in New York City. And I live on a very noisy corner in an area called Flatbush, which I don't think our young teens will probably visit. But yeah, it's so apologize if you hear some beeping, some honking, etc. We blame the city that never sleeps but always stabs.
I like that.
Coined it. Kevin Williamson royalties if you're going to use it.
It's the city that never sleeps but always stabs.
That does sound like more of a stab tagline
Yeah,
than an actual
I was gonna
Scream
say,
tagline.
but when there is a stab movie based on the events of Scream 6, that obviously needs to be the in-world tagline.
Absolutely.
I like it. I like it.
I'll take my check later.
We got some cool stuff to talk about today. I know they haven't really released anything like big in terms of, official trailers or images or anything like that, but we've got two quotes to talk about because I might have gone to TIFF and spoken to two people affiliated with the franchise, and I got some pretty cool quotes. They're nothing like totally mind-blowing, so I don't want to hype it up too much, but we can do that too. Sorry, we're DMing each other.
I don't know if people saw my hands go like this.
I got really excited about that.
King, we should talk about that.
We should probably talk about that. Do we want to talk about that first, or roll right into the quotes?
Let's talk about it, because the quotes, although Perri says they're not huge, they were, if you're a Scream fan, they're pretty telling, I think, and really exciting. For me, I mean, and the intrepid reporter who I get to talk to today got them out of the subjects, which I thought.
Do you know how I got the quote out of Melissa Barrera? This was like my thing during TIFF, because I brought a pair of Fear Street shoes and Scream shoes to TIFF, and I wore the Fear Street shoes for Kiana Madeira, the Scream shoes for Melissa, and I basically used my shoes as currency, and I said, I wore these shoes, you need to give me a scoop. It didn't like totally work all the time, but
I think that's how Woodward did it, doesn't it? Isn't that how he gets his quotes? He walks in with like Trump shoes and is like, "Hey, what a quote!"
Well then, it actually did work with Melissa though, because she flat out said this during her answer, but she probably went a little too far with her answer. But before we even get there, do you want to talk about trailer timing a little and what we're expecting?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, so they have the footage, right? They have enough, presumably, to make and cut together a trailer.
So usually when we have these kinds of conversations, I feel like I build a lot of my predictions around like massive pop culture events like conventions, but I feel like that trend seems to be dying a little bit, and it's not a very reliable thing, and it doesn't seem like Paramount has anything cooking at New York Comic Con. So I think we can kind of like wipe that from our minds. So I think the next big thing that I'm going to go to is the holiday movie season and say that they waited out and we don't actually get a full trailer until December.
You're thinking they're going to forego the opportunity to get in front of Halloween or something like that?
If they do want to get in front of something like Halloween, or when does Violent Night come out? That could be another one to try to get in front of. But I don't know. I'm kind of thinking that like even that mentality has come and gone, because the market is so oversaturated with content that if you release teasers and trailers too early, you run the risk of people forgetting you released one at all. Whereas if you kind of like pummel people with like promo after promo leading up to release, you have a better chance of making sure something is still fresh on someone's mind. So man, I don't know. I mean, it does make some sense to want to be in front of Halloween, but now I'm considering all of these new rules that everything has to play by.
The new rules sounds
like that's very Scream-like.
I wonder if they're going to have a meta discussion in Scream 6 about trailer timing, potentially. Maybe it'll be the same YouTubers that featured in Scream 5. The Perris and Joel. That's what I call them. I agree with you that as the industry has been blown up, so have our assumptions around how to market films. My biggest observation about marketing of movies recently is nobody's marketing movies, or they're really, they're definitely marketing the Dragon Show. But I don't, there was what was the film? Again, I can't believe I said, what is the film? The film with Sam Rockwell and Saoirse Ronan and is it
I
See How
know
They Run?
See How They
Or
Run, yeah.
yeah, that came out last week, right? I don't know. I was like, I was in cinemas because I looked at the box office report and it made like $3 million or something. And I was like, I had no idea that this film starring headline actors was released. So side note, I don't know how people are doing their marketing anymore. I would think that you're probably right that going closer to date is really key. I think the people who are caring long term about something like a Scream 6 are probably the folks watching stuff like this. They do not need to be reminded. But the folks who are making that sort of, close to the night decision probably are going to see the title in the marquee or whatever on your Fandango app. And reminding them closer to the date is probably more effective. Though I do think you could get a little tease in front of Halloween ends. Maybe a little like phone call, and then Hayden Panettiere picks up the phone, and then it's like, whoosh, Stab 7, Scream 6, whatever it is.
I'd be fine with that. I don't know. That does make sense, and I'm greedy, so I want content now. But
we need things to discuss.
I know. I mean, I do think that images are probably going to start coming out in the very near future. Like that, it does seem like they need to release something for Halloween time, if not a teaser before that movie, even a teaser poster or something. Although I don't know how an official teaser poster from Paramount is going to top all the fan-made ones that I've seen thus far that are just like incredible.
Incredible. The last one I saw was Ghostface maybe superimposed onto the reservoir in Central Park in a sort of like aerial view.
I think I might have seen that one.
Very, very cool. But I do think the knife as skyscraper in the skyline, incredible work, guys. Keep it up. We want more. And Paramount should frankly just pay and use some of those because they're not going to.
I think they should. I really think they should. I think that'd be a great idea. So those posters kind of give us a good segue to the Melissa Barrera quotes.
Absolutely. Also, poster creators, have we done the Statue of Liberty with a knife and a ghost face mask? Just work with that.
I feel like that has to have been done already, but I want to see it now.
Yeah, politically risky, but sure.
All right, so these Melissa Barrera quotes. So just to preface them a little bit, I got to talk to her for her movie Carmen, which she is quite good in at TIFF. And the way that I phrased the question was asking about the Manhattan of it all. How does it change the game when you're chased by Ghostface in a big city versus a suburban town like Woodsboro? And she said, it's like 20 times more mortifying. It's awful because you also see how in a big city like New York City, everyone is kind of doing their own thing and someone is screaming for help and no one will come to their help. No one comes to help them, like everyone's kind of like, I'm not getting into that. So it's mortifying because you're chased by Ghostface, but you also see humanity and how that reacts in a situation like that. Anyway, I think I've already probably said too much.
Indeed. Thank you, Melissa.
How you feeling about those quotes?
I mean, look, I think it's very exciting, the whole New York of it all, just to think about where they could take the story and the set pieces, right? And of course, the way that the world perceives New Yorkers to be, and as someone who's lived here off and on for 9 years, I think there is an element of truth to what Melissa is saying in certain situations. For example, and we'll talk about this in a moment, I guess, but on the subway, people are pretty heads down, and you can have someone come and scream in your face, generally not in peril, in more attack mode, and you can really, if you're a good New Yorker, you know how to look down or look straight ahead and ignore that behavior because engagement is not recommended. So I do think there's definitely a sort of walking along the street in the subway. I need to stay focused and forward looking. That said, I actually think New Yorkers more than people in certain, smaller communities potentially are willing to help when what they're witnessing or seeing is someone in danger or imperiled. I think New Yorkers have, the post 9/11 idea of this sort of city as that one that comes together to support each other, I think is actually quite true. And I think I witness it sort of day to day. I I was at a cinema the other day watching Barbarian, and the woman next to my friend, it was a cinema like the Alamo. It wasn't the Alamo, it was the Nighthawk, where you get food and drink. Had let's say overindulged by 2 drinks every order and maybe drank 7 cocktails during Barbarian. And I can tell you that every New Yorker in that cinema at the end of the theater, at the end of the movie, when she was like kind of potentially unconscious on that chair, was like, we need to call paramedics, we need to get people in here, etc. So maybe Maureen from Scream 2 would have fared better if she'd been in New York.
Okay, so I'll agree with you to a degree. I definitely think there's a lot of New Yorkers out there who are like eager and willing to step up when someone else needs help. Like I feel like the example you gave is in like almost like a safer, quieter place, because when you think about it, when you're on the go on a subway or maybe walking through Times Square, if like something alarming happened or someone came running past you with someone chasing them, like what would you do? Would you turn around and run after them? Would you look for a second and then keep on going about your business? I think the population is made up of a mix of people, and a good deal would just like it would potentially be like a Jada Pinkett Smith in Scream 2's type situation where like whether it's because you don't want to get involved or because you can't tell like what's really dangerous or not, there is a very like real type of scenario where in Manhattan in real life something terrible could be happening and your reaction is just to like stand there or stare, get as uninvolved as humanly possible, or not even be sure if something really scary is even happening because that city can be crazy sometimes.
I think the last point you made is very true about New York, that you would not know what is real, what isn't real, what is a stunt, what is a marketing moment, what is just silly teenagers doing things wildly in that environment. So I think that is definitely true. And I think, my example was not an aggressive person being stabbed on a subway, for example. How often do you stand up? I will say 2 things to that I do think there is a machismo in certain people in New York that in that subway car, I think there's at least 2 people, if it's full, who are going to be like, hey, bro, what the fuck are you doing? Even in that situation. But the only thing I would say is I don't think it's much different than in a shopping mall in suburban America or Australia, that if someone ran past me in a costume chasing after another girl, I don't know that my instant reaction would be, I'm from a small town, I'm going to go and chase them. And I think, you could provide safe harbor potentially.
Has there been confirmation about when the movie takes place?
No.
So if it is like a New York City Halloween parade type of situation, or I mean Halloween in New York City, period,
Mm-hmm.
that could make a like an innocent victim a very easy target in a city full of people.
Absolutely, and you can imagine, similar to some of the parties we've seen depicted in the later films of the Scream series, when everyone's in Ghostface masks, or the situation with Jenny McCarthy's character in Scream 2, where she's kind of like in that costume department. A train full of ghost faces, a train cart full of carriage full of ghost faces would be, pretty intimidating, and an environment in which it would be quite easy to get killed unnoticed. Because I think about SantaCon. I don't know if people know, if you're not in New York, or whether SantaCon is a global phenomenon. But it is basically, I think, I don't really get involved, but it's a situation around Christmas time where folks dress up as Santa and go around the city getting wasted, right? And you get on the subway and there's like 50, 25-year-old guys dressed up as Santa, drunk off their heads, and it's very annoying. But change to Ghostface, and that's a pretty dangerous situation.
As I was saying it, I thought I saw the Halloween theory pop up somewhere out there, and I'm just looking at like a random article right now that had set photos in it, and I think there's I mean, I guess like spoiler if someone doesn't want to know this, but these images are out there, I guess. There are some set photos that suggest that this could be a Halloween set Scream.
Pumpkins?
Yeah, like things like I don't like this one could not be legitimate for all I know, but there's like an image of someone's door being decorated with like haystacks and pumpkins. There's another image I see of set dressing in Manhattan that suggests in a Manhattan like setting that suggests it is Halloween decorations. So
Okay. Yes, very
like
dangerous to be in New York
little
on Halloween.
ghost face decorations under a table, little ghost decorations. I don't know. It could be that. And if that is the case, that could be a very, very vicious setting for a kill set piece. But like I do think about that in general, having lived in New York for a very, very long period of time, is, in a lot of these movies too, we think about like once you get out into like heavy population, you're safe. Well, like once you like run out of it's like the Sarah Michelle Gellar kill in I Know What You Did
Yes.
Last Summer. If she had gotten through the alley and into the parade, would she have been okay? So it's like you think that if you make it out into the population, you are going to be safe and okay, and someone will put a stop to something bad that's happening. But in reality, how often will that actually happen? You could still be at risk. And that's part of the reason why the beginning of Scream 2 is one of my favorite kills, is because that is a scenario that is scary to me.
100%. And I think, as much as I will defend New Yorkers and our honors as just as kind and caring with our neighbors as small town folk, I think there's a truth to that. And I think anyone who has not stood on the subway platform where it's very busy and the trains come in and had that split second, like, what if?
Yeah.
What if the person behind me is that psychopath who's just going to like nudge me over? I think that's a thought that many New Yorkers have. And I don't know that it's unique to New York. I think it's about the circumstances in which you find yourself, which is surrounded by people that you do not know in extraordinarily close proximity. And in situations where metal and machinery and other dangers are lurking.
It's an interesting thing, and I don't know how deep a Scream movie is going to go into exploring this, but this mixture of being surrounded by strangers you don't know, forcing someone to stay on their toes and be aware and alert and scared often, but then also being surrounded by people making one feel safe. And it's like, which way do you go? Which way do you feel about it? Because like another interesting thing about a slasher running around a big city is just how many people exist in such a small space. I feel like in a lot of horror movies, when it's like so-and-so was killed by this slasher at the farm down the road, you feel far removed from that and it gives you a sense of safety. Whereas like if someone's killed in an apartment building in New York, technically there's hundreds of people like within shouting distance. Like someone should be able to hear you through the wall kind of thing. And it's that
100%.
element of it is messing with my head a little bit. And I hope they get into it to a degree.
I mean, I think they will. I think this is a really fun opportunity or interesting opportunity to invert some of our expectations and what the sort of established rules have been in terms of at least survival. Like getting a home alone inside the house is probably the safest you can be in a city like this. And then if you are surrounded by those who are closest to you, who are they and are they the killer, etc. Yeah, I'll just say one thing, and this is not to get too serious, but there was an incident in New York to speak to sort of how New Yorkers are and the vibe of the city, where earlier this year, I believe it was, there was an incident on the subway that I'm sure many people read about. And the person who was responsible for it was at large for 24 hours, I think. This was the shooting on the subway earlier in the year. And it changed the nature of the city. Like, people were extraordinarily, like, again, there was that, like, caring and are you okay situation, but people were making decisions about how they navigated the city based on the fact that there was this person who'd done something terrible still at large. I can say that I did not catch the subway that afternoon, for example. I decided to walk home. And yeah, I think there is a way, and I think that kind of speaks to the fact that that proximity, you feel it. You feel it.
Okay. I kind of hope that they bring that kind of atmosphere to life in some sense on screen in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, you think about, I don't know, you think about big city serial killer situations. They like Summer of Sam, like the city becomes a tingle with the vibe in a way that I think is quite different from a smaller town like Woodsboro, which is more like who and what's going to be the thing, where it's like in a city like New York, it's like you have to reframe your entire way of thinking in some ways.
This is very, very random addition to this conversation, but it was just making me think. Like, I wouldn't mind a tinge of hopefulness in my horror sometimes. Black Phone has me thinking about that a lot because that is a really, like, dark, deeply disturbing movie, but there is something about, the kids coming together and supporting each other that gave it this, like, hopeful, positive vibe that I wasn't really expecting, and I feel like if they can capture that in New Yorkers through this movie, that would be a really, unique, game-changing way to evolve the franchise and, represent a corner that we don't often see in these movies.
Love it. Love it.
See what I did there?
I did.
Okay. So this can bring us to our next batch of quotes here. So for this one, Kevin Williamson came into our interview studio at TIFF because he was there promoting the movie Sick. And I obviously was not letting him leave without asking him a Scream question. So I went for something a little broader because, how we're like always complaining with all the iconic slasher franchises. It's like, can they go on forever? Shouldn't they just end? But Scream, in my mind at least, is a franchise that has, not that the others don't. I don't want this to imply that, but Scream in particular has the right to keep going and going because of what's baked into like what it was from day one. And it's the idea that the Scream movies are commenting on horror, a genre that keeps evolving. So as long as the genre keeps evolving, the Scream franchise can keep evolving and justify its continuation. So I basically more concisely explained that to Kevin Williamson and asked him what he thought, if he thought that the Scream franchise could keep on going and never stop. And what he told me was, yes, at first I might have thought the opposite of that, but now since I've been proven wrong repeatedly and this last Scream was such a pleasure, I think one of the wonderful things about Scream is there is a different killer in every film, whereas in most, Halloween and Friday the 13th, there's Jason, there's Michael, there's Freddy. They don't go away. Ghostface changes with every movie. And so we have an opportunity to change the motive and change the story. And we can always twist and turn it. It was meant to be sort of a game changer all along. So the trick is, how do we keep game changing? And I think this new team that I'm working with is awesome. They're absolutely amazing. They're wonderful human beings. They're talented. And it's just been a pleasure to be a part of this new regime. So Kevin Williamson thinks it could keep on going. And I think it can keep on going as well.
I want it to keep on going. I do think it's interesting because I have always linked into the way that he was originally thinking, or confessed that he originally thought. And I think the idea of Ghostface constantly being different is both the thing that could allow it to continue forever or the thing that could make it tired quite quickly. Because you have to orchestrate these complex whodunits and these new motivations that are tied to both personal history and some sort of comment on the culture. And I think at a certain point you do risk, unless you're threading that needle extraordinarily carefully and thoughtfully, that becoming trite or really contrived or getting old. I think that's where the reinvention comes in. How do you satisfy that that need for the structure of the story and what Scream is to provide who Ghostface is revealed to be, at the same time as not getting tired. Whereas the other franchises have a simpler task, which is just immortal bad guy, keep bringing them back. We can make these forever, interchange the people around them. So I do think it is challenging. I think it's again, it's the inbuilt thing that makes it perpetual, but it's the inbuilt thing that could make it tired, unless there's really thoughtful reinvention.
It's a different challenge. It's a different challenge for both of them because I think the way that you just described, the immortal killer comes back and does it again, but to a new group of people. That has an equal chance of growing tiresome and feeling like it's repetitive all over again. And it's definitely tough for the Scream movies. Also, I think one of the keys to it, though, and this thought frustrates me to even have because obviously I want Scream movies every single year if I could get them. But I think one of the big things with justifying the continuation of the Scream franchise is to have breaks because a lot of the fuel for these movies is in the genre evolution. And you need to give time to the genre to change and throw out new things for you to comment on and for your killers and your characters to be influenced by. So really, I think Scream 4 deserved way more credit than it got, and it should have relaunched the franchise simply because it's a good movie. But I actually think it was kind of a blessing for that movie to not have done as well, and then to have given us time for Scream 5 to be as rich as it was with its genre commentary. So I don't know. I think that they definitely could maybe, be in a period where they're justifying a film trilogy, but I, I would think that a break would be necessary at a point in order to give these movies like the meat on their bones that have made them special since day one.
Yeah, and I think that does avoid some of sort of the plotting challenges as well. It doesn't become as repetitive because we are given a break and we're put in a position where we're made to wait for something we really enjoy and therefore are going to re-embrace that structure a little bit more. But I absolutely agree that taking a break or giving time for what you're commenting on to evolve is really smart. I thought Scream 5, again, as you said, Scream 4 was a blessing in a way, allowing Scream 5 to come at this time when, the requel reboot sort of discussion and fuel of it, but then also the fan motivation for Richie and Amber was really interesting and touching on things that did not necessarily explicitly exist back in that day. It makes the next set of films, I think, quite an interesting challenge because they're coming so hot on the heels. So you're going to have that thing of like the intricate plot, is it ridiculous challenge, as well as what could they be commenting on new. I don't doubt their abilities to do so because I didn't see at least the fandom element of Scream 5 coming. And I thought that was pretty refreshing and interesting from a motivation point of view. But in terms of like what they're going to comment on this time, I think it'll be quite interesting.
I really do think that the Manhattan location gives them an advantage in that
Yeah.
respect. I mean, this isn't necessarily commenting on genre, of course, but I do think commenting on, you know, urban behavior versus suburban behavior is something that could easily make this movie stand out from the others and give it a lot of, subtext that is fresh and stuff that the previous films haven't done, so you're not retreading anything. But in terms of genre commentary, it is going to be interesting. I'm curious to see where they go with that. And it feels like one movie isn't enough to explore the obsessive culture that has emerged in particular in the last couple of years. And I think there's probably great opportunity to keep that thread going via our obsession with social media and Insta fame. Like
Mhm.
that's been one of my favorite things in movies lately. Because did you ever see Not Okay with Zoe Deutsch?
No, but I know the plot line, yes.
Yeah, so, like, that one did it, and then I saw Susie Searches at TIFF, and that does it too, but in a completely different way, and it is a really fascinating thing because it's so prevalent now, this obsession with being social media famous or, like, online famous, no matter what kind of content you make,
Mhm.
and how the lengths we're willing to go to get that are extremely, like, problematic and disturbing, but, like, also understandable. I mean, that's the other thing with movies like that. You don't have to condone the character's behavior, but the fact that if you're on social media at all, you've likely had a taste of wanting to, like, "Should I post that to get my likes?"
Mhm.
You've probably had that internal debate at one point or another, and it basically just makes you be able to understand why those characters would do what they did, but hopefully while knowing, like, no one should ever do what those characters did.
100%. When we think about the context of the survivors of this film, right? Gail at the end of Scream 5, I know, says those fuckers can die in anonymity. But the survivors are going to be insta famous, right?
Someone's
Whether
gonna do it. Someone's gonna take
whether they
that and
like it
take
or
it down a
not.
dark path.
Mindy, I mean, just like even from a positive point of view, I can see Mindy becoming like a horror influencer on whatever. She's like a horror expert who survived a stab
Yeah.
massacre. Like this is setting her up to be at a minimum decently followed on Twitter or getting a blue check. And then there could be, the social media influence. I don't know what that says about the genre, although, there could be something said about the way that the genre is embracing or not embracing tech in some ways. Like, obviously there's the handheld, there's the computer stuff. I don't think they will go down that path because I don't know that it's a strong enough trend to embrace. Um, but yeah, I'm curious. I think in a very meta world, although from my understanding they weren't planning on this necessarily. What does it mean for a franchise not to have its original final girl? Could be something that is at least thread. I can imagine there's at least going to be threads of conversation.
All right. So you think they are going to work that into the script somehow?
I mean, I feel like if you're talking about we're in a horror movie and Sydney is not involved, I feel like it needs to, I mean, it could be, I'm sure they're going to say something like, oh, Mark and Sydney are in Greece.
Well, yeah, I mean beyond that, because like what you just said seems like a whole nother meta layer that a
Yes.
Scream movie would benefit from. What does it mean when a franchise
Yeah.
continues on and the final girl is out of the picture? I don't know if they had enough time to,
That's the thing.
restructure and reapproach the idea in order to embrace that.
Yes, that's what I was saying. I think at a minimum they're gonna I think what we'll probably see is what I said, like, oh, Mark and Sydney are in Australia.
I think you're right.
But I do think the possibility is what I brought up, which is like, what does it mean for a series to continue without its final girl and a new final girl and the passing of the torch? I don't know, as I said, like the circumstances really don't suggest that they would have been thinking through that. But it's possible. I think it would be really interesting. I think it would be, fascinating to think about like the quality of the new final girl. I mean, if they were being really pointed and looking at some of the criticisms of 5, which I'm sure they wouldn't, because like you don't want to put Melissa in that situation. But I'm like, it's kind of like, is this are you compelling enough to carry the franchise forward? Are you strong enough to carry the franchise forward? You're literally standing in the shadow of Sydney Prescott. And I think they could have touched on those themes, even had Sydney been, as maybe was originally planned, a supporting or side character. What does it mean to be the new focus? They sort of explored that from the point of view of like the Billy element and all that kind of stuff. But like, can you uphold a franchise? That wasn't really explored, I don't think.
It's bothering me how much I like this idea because I don't think they're going to have enough time to like fully address something like this at this point. But it's a really good idea for a movie.
As I said, we're writing Scream 7. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
We're available.
I wish. Is there anything else you want to add about any current
Yeah.
Scream news?
I mean, you said that you were talking to Kevin regarding a film called Sick. And I have heard really good things about Sick, including that it is replete, is that the right word, use, with great chase sequences, or at least effective chase sequences, bringing back the chase sequence. And that makes sense because the director, whose name escapes me, and I'm sure it won't escape you, is the man who made Alone, which is a very effective sort of cat and mouse film that I suggest people go and watch if they like this kind of thing.
You are right about that. The chase sequences, which really is the majority of the movie, is one of the highlights of the film. It's director, I only said John, I only said his first name, Hyams. Is that how I would pronounce it? He is the director. And the two stars in this, Gideon Adlon, who like we know from a bunch of other movies, but then also newcomer Bethlehem Million. She was fantastic. I really, really, really loved Sick for, I will say, 80% of the movie. The reveal of what's really going on didn't quite work for me. But I will say the first 80% of the movie is fantastic, and me not really liking the ending did not impact how I felt about the experience I had with the film overall. I would watch the movie again in a heartbeat because those really are some expertly crafted chase sequences. It's got a great opening, really great opening that has that kind of feel of, putting you on the edge of your seat and basically leaving you in a place where you're like, holy shit, before you even get into the main narrative. And then really the two lead actors together are phenomenal in the way that, they evolve their relationship and who they are throughout the movie with how they're moving around the house that they're located in. Really, really well-designed stuff across the board. And like, it's scary too. One thing that the movie had me thinking about is, oftentimes with these films, when you meet the lead characters, you're like, well, you're not going to die. This this had me thinking that either of them probably could have died at any given moment. And I feel like that's an important thing that we need to continue to emphasize in all chase type horror movies. But it really was a very well done film that I'm glad I had seen.
Awesome. I'm really excited to see it. Kevin Williamson, back in the genre that we all sort of got to know him for. Chase sequences. I read one review that I think I really agree with, is that the world has lacked for chase sequences lately. Like, where did the chase sequence go in slasher movies? I even think about Scream 5, which I really enjoyed. Is there really I mean, there's great setups and set pieces, but there isn't really like a solid like chase sequence.
I don't know if this was really the case, but if Kevin Williamson felt that way, he is like just approached the script like, fuck it, then I'm going to put all the chase sequences in.
All the chase sequences.
This movie is an entire chase.
You get a chase sequence, and you get a
that
chase
is what it is.
Well,
it's a great
for those,
effect.
I just say, if you're going to do your homework, go and watch Alone if you're excited about this film, because that also is a kind of from memory extended chase sequence, and really just effectively done. Mr. Hyams knows what he's doing when it comes to getting your nerves all shattered.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one to get out there. Has this one had any pickup news?
I don't think it has a distributor, from what I understand, or maybe there is. Correct me if I'm wrong.
What's going on? What is going on?
It's a Kevin Williamson horror movie.
I mean,
World, what are you doing?
I know we have to wrap in a minute, but I'll just like at least blab about this. I love Oscar season and talking about those movies. And I get really excited about TIFF being, the launch pad for Oscar campaigns. But we can't forget that it's also a festival for new films and emerging filmmakers and all this other talent that doesn't have studio backing. It's an opportunity for them to get the distribution they need to get their products seen. And I feel like that has been completely overshadowed by, The Fabelmans and Glass Onion and Empire of Light and Women Talking, which are, movies that I thought were all pretty great. Some of them I loved, but I just don't want to lose sight of the fact that these festivals are also opportunities for movies that don't have a studio behind them to get the traction that they need. And it feels like so many of those movies went so undercovered this year, which is unfortunate.
Well, I wonder, and I know that we have to go, and we preface that with everything, but whether the entire tenor of TIFF is going to change eventually, because the strategy for folks like that, it's like, if it's not working at TIFF, you just need to wait and go to Sundance or go to South by or something like that is just really a market. Well, I mean, South by, to some extent, has become about the big premieres for certain types of films as well. But if places like, when I say, I mean, I don't think a movie like Sick with Kevin Williamson's name attached to it, given his connections and everything in Hollywood, is going to not get fine distribution. But I do think about some of the films we were discussing off camera. I'm like, I don't know, is it like, why weren't you at one of these earlier festivals, or why didn't you wait?
I think out of all, like, I think I did 20 interviews total, and of all of the ones I did interviews for, and I will say, there's only one movie that I saw that I would give a negative review to. I would give everything else positive. Some like glowing reviews and some not so much, but I thought every single one was solid beyond that one.
But The Fabelmans was trash, right? 1 star?
The Fabelmans was one of my absolute favorites of the festival. I'll tell you which one I didn't like the most off camera, but and I'll share it with the channel soon enough. But I forgot where I was going with that point. Oh, but of all of those movies, of all the ones that don't have distribution, I only heard of a single one getting a distributor, How to Blow Up a Pipeline going to Neon. But I mean, Sisu, you've seen Rare Exports, right?
Yes.
That director made Sisu. It is fucking fantastic. The most glorious gore that I saw at the festival and maybe this year in general. A crowd pleaser, family drama like a Wildflower. Susie Searches would be one of the hottest streaming pickups. I just feel like that's a movie, if it hit like, I don't know, like a Hulu or something, people would watch it over and over and kind of like get obsessed with that character. But and Brother, we're talking about all of these Oscar-worthy performances right now. Brother has 4 incredible lead performances in it. And the fact that I haven't heard anything about that getting a distributor is just mind-boggling to me. But anyway, it bugs me. I want some of those movies to get the spotlight they deserve. Rant over.
Distribute more movies. Pick up more movies. Give them a chance. And then give us a Scream trailer and post it, please. Thank you, world.
Meanwhile, on the next video that I post on this channel, I'll probably complain like, I don't have time to watch everything that's coming out.
Because you've already seen them, though, so it doesn't matter.
All right, we got to go. Joel, where can everyone find you on the socials?
You can find me in the subway, just don't stab me. But you can find me at Joel Mears on Twitter, and that's pretty much it. I'm a low-key civilian these days, Perri. I only come out of the manhole to talk Scream with you every now and then.
As it should
Put on
be.
my t-shirt and like get going.
I will use this opportunity to plug a new ladies' night that features a new Scream queen. Mia Goth is my next ladies' night guest, and that is a conversation that I've been wanting to have for a very, very long time, and she did not disappoint. She was wonderful, so check that out. All right, Joel, we're out of here. It's an honor.
It's an honor, Perri, always.